Hello, everyone. It's Royce here, and I want to thank you all so much for joining the Royce in the House YouTube channel. I want to introduce my guests to my point the right way here. Next to me is Chris Elliott. Chris Elliott is a regular co-host on the show, and below the two of us is the one and only man that needs no introduction, Michael Nolan. Now, Michael, your channel just broke 40,000 subscribers this week, didn't it?
Yeah, I sure did, Royce. I'll tell you.
David, yeah. We'll introduce David,
nowhere.
Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. Man, it's so good to have you here. You're such a. I just miss it when you're not here. You're such a strength of knowledge with you is just amazing.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, your volume's a little low. David. You're welcome anytime. And I was just asking Michael before you popped on, and I stopped to say hi. I was mentioning to Michael, I noticed that he had just broke 40,000 subscribers this week.
Yeah, isn't that something? Who would have ever thought?
Yeah, I was wondering if I was ever going to break 1,000. This YouTube's a funny business. You'll put a show on. I put a show on a few weeks ago, and I thought, well, this isn't going to do as good as the one before it. The one before it got 2,700 views. Well, this one got 64,000 views. Then I put another show on it afterwards, another show, similar topics afterwards, and I thought, well, this is just as good as that one that did so well, and it does nothing. I don't know really how it works. It's like there's some wheel spinning around and there's one little opening in it, and your show has to hit that hole just right.
Yeah.
Okay,
we're not hearing you, David.
Yeah, your volume, I can barely hear you.
Yeah, no volume at all.
Not yet.
He'll figure it out.
Oh yeah,
he'll figure it out.
Well, that's good. We've got
if nothing else, just sign off and come back in with a fresh link. Sometimes that'll unfreeze things.
Yeah, I had to turn my computer off for an hour before the show started because I don't know if it's the heat or what. It just hasn't been, I'll click on something and it'll just sit there and buffer. And I don't remember when I've had those kinds of problems, not in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's been
Royce, I was going to say, you've been kind of contemplating how each video does, some of my favorite videos did crap.
I know.
I go, you get that thing like, don't they understand? There's a message here. Now, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Sometimes you just feel, every once in a while you feel good about a video and then it launches out into the stratosphere and you go, that's when you go, I got this figured out, right? Then you do the same thing and you're just as strong on that video and nobody shows up to watch it,
And you know what? I'll tell you something. You warned me about that. He said, don't be surprised if going forward you have some shows that don't do anything like this.
Right. And what you got to do, Royce, is focus. Yeah, just focus. Make each video better. Don't worry about the views. The views will come.
Oh, I know.
Audiences.
It's all good.
My people will complain that Michael only covers the main theme bands. Well, those are the bands I freaking like. All right. I'm not going to sit here and cover a subgenre that, the potpourri of potpourri rock and the potpourri king is this guy over.
Yeah. Every time I do that, the results are poor. But let me just say hi to a couple of people real quick. Dr. Rick has joined us. Thank you so much. The Music Sanctuary is here. Hit Space 80 is here. Oberheim's joined us. And our
Brandon, right? Oberheim? Is it Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon. Yeah.
He just messaged me over on my channel and then gave his name. And I go, nice to put a name with the tag,
And last but certainly not least, our own Caitlin Stoddard, Caitlin's Magical Corner. Check her out, folks. Anyway,
Caitlin a couple of days ago was trying to sneak into the concert and she was trying to get into the trailer, the Rockstar trailer. She was trying to circumvent the police. She's a real renegade, Royce.
Oh, renegade. She's kind of a little bit like us, isn't she?
Yeah.
We all have those stories, the free concerts that, we're supposed to have paid to get in.
Yeah,
So,
but I loved
guys-
her stream. She was covering her trying to get in, and it was a little different than her usual stream.
Oh, good. Eric Schultz has joined us. Eric's always got a
Hey,
lot
Eric.
of great information. Real bright guy. I just
Yep.
want to say that, okay, what is a supergroup? Well, you know what? I did a show about 3 weeks ago, the Traveling Wilburys. Now, that is my absolute definition of a supergroup. Okay. You had George Harrison with Jeff Lynne working in Bob Dylan's studio. And then they had Tom Petty come in and they had Roy Orbison come in. See, that's my definition of a supergroup. These people were all superstars in other groups, solo, other bands or otherwise.
He's back.
And they came together to form a group. So the Traveling Wilburys, to me, like I said, are like my definition of a supergroup. But actually, the title of the show tonight was "Who is the first supergroup?" In fact, where did the term supergroup come from? One of Michael's favorite people, Jan Werner, first used the supergroup describing the Cream.
Hey, Royce, I gotta ask this. You call them the Cream. I've never
Cream.
I've
No,
never,
Cream.
A
It's
Cream.
hard to-
You
it's-
say
yeah,
that
Cream.
all the time. The
I
Cream.
know,
And I'm going, who is he talking about? Sorry.
It's like
Yeah, I mean,
the Eagles.
at least the Beatles are the Beatles.
Right,
And
right.
A lot of people say Rolling Stones, or maybe shorten it to Stones, but I don't think "the" is part of the name either. It just
I
seems,
didn't bring it up to embarrass you. I honestly thought, does he know? Was there a moment that they actually were called the Cream and then they
No, I
changed it?
know.
Or I didn't know.
I have a
Yeah.
hard time saying Cream without the Cream, like like the band the Cream, you know.
Taking
Yeah.
the coffee.
But, yeah, we've been joined also by my good friend Steve Midtham, who goes back a long ways with me and Caitlin and Jeff Davidson and some of the others from a show 3.5, 4 years ago. So, hi, Steve. Good to see you here, brother. Glad you could make it. So, where did the term supergroup come from? Well, a lot of people think it came from this album, which was a supergroup.
Yep,
And
this
the
is a good
album
album.
is Super Sessions. Mike
Yeah.
Bloomfield, Al Kooper, and Stephen Stills, all successful musicians in their own right, came together and put this fabulous album out. I've loved this since I was a teenager. I finally found a clean used copies. They still sell it new, but I found a clean copy of it and I had to buy it. This is a great album. And incidentally, Stephen Stills went on to be one of the founders of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, who are also considered by some to be the first supergroup. Okay, so we're surrounded
What year and month did Cream come out versus Crosby, Stills, and Nash? 69 for Nash for CSN.
Yeah, let me see. I've got a couple. I don't have all that memorized. Let me take a look at some. Okay.
Yeah, I think Cream beat them by a year or so, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they'd be the first one.
Well, yeah, they were 66 through 69.
66
Cream.
Yeah.
fresh fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
they did beat them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we have to call all these great bands supergroups. I mean, I can call Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, the Beatles, and 25% of my albums, I can call them supergroups. But by definition, we're talking about a group of existing prominent musicians, successful musicians, well-known musicians, but a lot of great music we all love. They come together to make music together. And that's the kind of supergroup we'll be talking about tonight. We've been joined by Foxo Chaka and our good buddy,
Hey, Foxo Chaka.
French Vinyl Addict. I still call him Romy or Rami because I really can't pronounce his name right, so we shortened it. But he's got a great show, and it's really been growing.
Yep.
And he's got a multinational audience, Yep. And then we've been joined by my buddy Jeff Davidson. And good to see you here, Jeff. Very good to see you here, my friend. So anyway, supergroups. I would imagine David's got a couple of copies of that Super Sessions album.
One.
You got one. Okay, good. I don't feel so bad now. Okay.
All right.
So
I got that album only for one reason. See, I was just starting to get cool when that album came out, in my mind anyway.
Yeah.
I was a snotty-nosed teenager, but I was trying to break free of, you know, the Beatles and get into more alternative. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And when that
get into
album
that.
came out, the only reason I was aware of it was Stephen Stills and mainly Donovan. And I knew they were covering Season of the Witch.
Yeah,
And,
Season of the Witch. What a great song.
And so that's the only reason I didn't know who Al Kooper was yet. Who the hell was Mike Bloomfield? You know, I was still trying to, you know, but God, what a great album. It's so organic. What do you think, David? That album, it has like, it's just their presence to it.
Yeah, it's just it's really holistic in a lot of ways.
It
just kind of hits on a lot of different cylinders.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
A lot of people cite the Cream as the first actual supergroup. You know, consisting of
again, Michael.
We're never going to break him of it, Chris.
Okay. Cite Cream as the first supergroup.
Should have called him half
consisted
and half.
You know, which consisted of Eric Clapton, who'd played with the Yardbirds. He'd played with John Mayall on the Bluesbreakers. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's just it played with so many. Also,
what band didn't Clapton play for?
Ginger Baker, and in that era, I can tell you right now, everybody considered him to be the greatest rock drummer of the time. Ginger Baker.
Yep.
I mean, he was talked about a lot, much more than John Bonham gets talked about all the time. But,
I'd still consider him probably, you know, in the top 6 or 7 drummers. I mean, even just with his discography, his catalog. I loved his freeform approach, almost Keith Moonish, but not more disciplined. You know, Keith Moon was kind of like crazy, but
Keith Moon was crazy,
and he played crazy. I mean, to me, that guy played lead drums. You know, drums.
Right.
Oh.
Well, Jack Bruce. I mean, what a voice! I absolutely, you know, I've listened to albums like this, Cream albums, my whole life. This was the first 8-track I bought when I was, 16 years old. I bought this and Creedence's Bayou Country, and I still listen to both of those, well, in album form and cassette form. I have a lot of cassettes, and I have one rarity edition of this album that's in both mono and stereo on the same CD.
Wow.
Somebody, I was working on a building, and a guy said, you like music? And I, yeah. And he walked out a couple hours later and gave it to me and said, here's a gift for you.
Wow.
It's a rarities edition. Yeah, no. So I love this band. So we had Bruce, the bass player, fantastic singer. Eric Clapton sang. They all sang a little bit, you know.
Oh, and by the way, as a lead singer and bass,
Jack Bruce. Go ahead. No, it's all good.
I'm sorry, Royce. I was just going to say it should be noted that Jack Bruce, as a lead singer, songwriter, and bass player, he's one of the top. You know, his lines. I can tell you, the last band I was in, I was the bass player and sometimes lead singer, and to do that. You know, when you're playing a 7/8 pattern and trying to sing on top of that, Jack Bruce could do that so well, man.
Now, would you say his bass lines were as good as Gene Simmons? I'm just messing.
Almost. You know, I mean, I'd have to get back to Gene on that because Gene won't let me say anything about him.
Okay, but Jack
neither will your lawyer.
Actually, you know what? Gene Simmons isn't a bad bass player. You know, I know. He's top of the line garage band bass playing, which is about what I was. I might go a little beyond what Gene does, but you know, he's in the pocket. You know, back in the day, he was in the pocket. He can do the whole show and everything. You know, he's fine. He wouldn't be in my top 50 bass players in rock and roll, but he was competent.
Yeah, he was competent.
Hey, I got a fun fact about Cream and Eric Clapton for you. Rumor has it that the first time Eric Clapton ever sang live was when they recorded, I think it was at the Fillmore, Crossroads. That was the first song Eric Clapton sang live. Of recording.
Boy,
Okay.
that song just comes in and out of his career, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, I understand he was encouraged to start singing more by John
Yeah.
Mayall. John
Yeah.
Mayall.
And Jack
But,
Bruce pushed him into it too.
And Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker both played with the Graham Bond organization.
Yeah.
I don't know what else they did. I never found that information.
Did you freeze, or is it just me?
I can't hear him.
I think you're frozen.
Oh, look at him. He looks so cute. He looks so innocent there.
Yeah.
Doesn't he?
He's all digitized.
All right, folks, now take a look at this picture. This man needs your subs.
Well, thanks for that, Michael. Yeah, I want to encourage everybody to. Hey, there's our buddy Hop Frog, David. How you doing?
David, how you doing?
And Angela's here. Hi, Angela. It's been a while. Good to see
Hop
you.
hop on in, David. I always appreciate your Dave. We'll call David, and Dave. How's that sound?
I think that sounds perfect.
He's always good on the panel.
Yeah. In fact, David, I just put a link up if you'd like to jump in here with us. So anyway, getting back to the Cream, iconic songs. I mean, every school band plays "Sunshine of Your Love." You know.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Every
that
high
was
school.
a weird one because the single came out on different labels. It came out on Atco and it came out on Fontana, I believe,
Right.
which was weird.
Why was that? Why did it?
I think some change in licensing rights right in the middle of it must have happened. That's all, or it was distributed through two different arms. I don't know.
Now, who owned Atco? Because I kept remembering Atco was Atlantic. Okay, yeah. All right.
Subsidiary.
Well, what was I going to say? I was going to talk about a couple of other Cream songs. One was Crossroads, of course, and that's already been mentioned. He played that, in any of the bands he played with, I think, and did an excellent job of it too. Old blues cover, everybody loved it. But White Room,
and White Room is their Hey Jude.
And you know what I really liked? I like songs like Strange Brew. I mean, it was a real trippy thing going on throughout that whole album. Disraeli Gears,
That almost sounds Hendrix-like. Strange Brew, that whole, gypsy rock, acid gypsy rock kind of flavor to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, another band that some look to as the first supergroup was the band that came after Cream, Blind Faith. Mm-hmm. And I have their one and only album. They only put one album out. And my older brother, and Michael's heard me talk about how we used to hitchhike out to my older brother's house and listen to, Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour. And I got back into being a big fan of the Beatles at the time. And but they put that album out. And of course, two of the members of Cream, not the Cream, were also in Blind Faith. We had Ginger Baker once again and Eric Clapton, also joined by child prodigy Stevie Winwood, Traffic, Spencer Davis Group. And I read a story that Stevie Winwood was playing in a band with his brother and father when he was something like 8 or 9 years old. And he was way too young to be playing in this adult-only pub or whatever they were in. And so they turned him around every night, and he faced the back wall, and all anybody could see was his back. They didn't want anybody to see just how young he was. But he was,
you know what? And think of his, discography, his artistic endeavors over the decades, and he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's a shame.
Yeah. Then you rounded it out. No longer a 3-member band. Now you had Rick Greck, who also played violin with the Family and with the Spencer or Traffic.
Oh, I think he's gone again.
Uh-oh.
Well, in the meantime, he's talking about Blind Faith. This is a DVD of their first time they ever played live. It was in Hyde Park in front of 100,000 people.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
That was their live debut.
Yeah.
How did they sound? How were they live?
Oh, this sounds excellent on this DVD.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be putting together. I just did a a poll on my channel, and I just chose 5 of my favorite, not the tip top or anything like that. Some of them are, of the best live albums in rock and roll. And I put, The Song Remains the Same, Wings Over America, the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East, and Frampton Comes Alive, all the big ones. I just kind of put it out there.
Right.
And you know what? I have almost 3,000 votes on that poll. And this is the closest poll out of hundreds of polls I've ever done. I think the top band is at 26%. The next one's at 23, 19, 18. I think the losing album is at 13. So one of my viewers asked me to do a video on that. So all you folks be looking, because I think that's going to be my next video. My top 10. I haven't done a top 10 video in so long. That kind of is what made my channel for a while, Royce.
Yeah.
And I just kind of got away from that. But occasionally I would like to do that. Like we talked about last week, I'm a ranker. I put things in my head, and I prioritize things. It's just the way I am. And so I'm really hot to do this and get it done. So Chris, thanks. I'll take a look at that. I'd like to kind of maybe look at that album as a possibility.
Okay. So another band that gets high marks for maybe being the first supergroup is Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And obviously, they were all superstars before they ever joined together with pedigrees.
Yes, they were.
Buffalo, Springfield, and the Birds. I mean, they played in some great bands. Some of these guys.
The Hollies.
So, the Hollies, yeah. So, Dave, who would you consider? I'm going to tell you right off the bat, guys. I would consider Cream the very first supergroup.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah, I think so.
Under what we're talking about tonight.
Yes, under the definition. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a counter argument, Royce, that you can say, yeah, but the bands that Cream came out of were kind of second tier bands, first of all, compared to the tip top Rolling Stones, Beatles, at the time. But with Crosby, Stills and Nash and later Young, we got what we're going to probably wind up talking about with the Wilburys is what I call they've got a DNA of true superstardom.
Yeah. Like Eric Clapton, Yardbirds, Bluesbreakers, Delaney and Bonnie, and you're right. It wasn't Beatles, Rolling Stones, but it was right there. You can't all be Beatles and Rolling Stones, but it was
they were
there. I mean,
they were big. Don't get me wrong; those were big bands, but it was like the more serious rock fans knew about them. Your average 15-year-old girl listening to KFRC driving down 101. May have heard of them, but didn't own a single album.
I know exactly what you're saying. Don't get me wrong.
But with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, especially right from the outset, here we have with Buffalo Springfield one of the biggest hits, and they were short-lived. The Birds, who the Birds had that magical sound with that 12-string electric. Yeah, Rickenbacker sound that almost sound. The only other band that almost sounded like them to me was the Beau Brummels. I loved them.
I don't know how many people I've heard cite the Birds as maybe their favorite band of all time.
Oh, I know a ton of people. That's their number one band. Matter of fact, we're talking about who are the top 3 bands. That band didn't come up in our discussion last week, and I'm surprised because they were a supergroup. And the Hollies. My God, think of all the hits they had. Your average 15-year-old girl knew the Hollies, whether she knew the Hollies or that Nash was with the Hollies or not. They certainly knew their hits. And now we have a lineage with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and later Young. And they are also the one supergroup that had longevity. Because most supergroups have the supergroup curse. They die as quick as they came. right?
Well, yeah, it's probably
Hi,
hard to-
David. Or Dave.
Okay, yeah. Let me say one thing first. I want to welcome Sean McCall to the show. Good to see you here, brother.
Yep.
Okay, David, go ahead. You're up.
I was going to say, why aren't the Byrds the first supergroup? Throw one out there, 1964.
1964. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I guess I was a bigger fan of some of the ones I'm citing, but that doesn't
Sure.
make them.
Yeah,
that doesn't make them. I tend to go with who I listen to the most.
Sure.
And
But I mean, Mr. Tambourine Man was a huge hit. Matter of fact,
Oh, God.
And
that's,
I have-
that's how
I
I
think I have-
discovered Dylan was through that.
Yeah.
Through that.
Me too, David. Me
Right.
too.
Absolutely.
Well,
Because
you're
I'm
making-
not.
you're
I
making-
don't buy Dylan albums. I don't hate his voice. It's the whole sound. But he's right, and but I do. He is one of my favorite songwriters. I've just got to get past and start breaking down. I got to listen to Glenn from the Basement, Glenn Kellaway, because he's a major Dylan fan. And
Dylan, yeah.
I'm trying. I'm trying to catch up on what I missed. The only reason I thought Dylan was cool was because John Lennon thought he was cool. I got to be honest with you.
And Jimmy too. Jimmy
Yeah,
Hendrix liked him too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
But
always
his stuff,
liked
God,
Dylan.
All Along the Watchtower is my favorite Jimi Hendrix
Yes.
cut.
yes.
That is a perfect
Bob?
single. That
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
single, you couldn't improve that single. There's no
No.
point in anybody ever covering that song again. Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix
Yeah, no.
made Bob Dylan's song his. He owns it. Bob Dylan
yeah.
just
I know,
merely wrote
absolutely.
it, you know.
It was
Oh.
one of his top hits, I think, in England before he even came back to the States.
And the same can be said about the Byrds. David's making a good, valid point here.
David's making
that
a
song.
very good point. Yeah.
And the Byrds were great for another reason. They were a great translator band. They could take somebody else's material and you go, but it's the Byrds. They put their stamp on it. But then they were also great songwriters. 8 Miles High, I love that song. Boy, talk about
yeah.
a moment in time with that one.
Let me throw one thing out real quick, and then we'll get back to David. And that's Romy, French Vinyl Addict. If you're still out there, I just put up another link, and I'd love to have you join us if you'd like to.
I haven't been on a channel with him in a while.
David, you made a great point about the Byrds. Is there anybody else that you'd throw kind of in that category?
But they were the only reason I thought of them was, again, going back to what I said about first recognizing that song and what it did. Those are probably, I mean, it seemed like there was a bit of a lull. I mean, let's face it, 64, 65, 66, the Beatles and Stones were just blurring everything else out a bit.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And I
With
think
some
that-
Beach Boys on the side.
Beach Boys.
Well,
yeah,
wait a minute.
absolutely.
What do you mean by they were blurring it out? I'm not quite following.
Well, what I meant was their popularity was so intense that it was hard.
Yeah.
Oh,
There was a
It
lot
was-
of
it was
other
like-
things out there, and you
Yeah.
didn't hear it as much because
Like
they were
they're
giving it airtime.
sucking all the air out of the room. is what it
Exactly.
is,
Yes.
you know?
I concur. That's totally true.
Dominating the airwaves, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
but no, I think Cream, it was at first the one, I thought of two, but then I said, man, it was a little later than the Byrds. And so I just was curious about you guys' opinion on that because that was the one I had thought of.
I wouldn't have thought of it, but I think it's a viable candidate.
What I have to ask, I'm not real familiar with all the band members in the Byrds. Did they have the same kind of, say, what I think is a pedigree? Well, of course, not of the Traveling Wilburys. Nobody's going to top that. But they were far from the first.
Mhm.
But how about even Cream?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
they weren't as mature in their, they'd been in bands, but not
Yeah.
ones that had individual viability or
Right.
hits
Okay.
or anything.
Okay.
So
Well, that would be the
that's-
only reason why I would mark them down from the top spot.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just when we were having a moment with the Byrds voice, you go and ruin it for us all.
No, we could
No,
keep
but
having-
for tonight's discussion, you're right. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. They didn't. Have
We're
the
looking for, I
individualistic
guess,
side.
a already established and recognized pedigree. right?
Yeah,
That's what we're looking for, right?
As individuals, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, well let's move across to Dave for a minute here. We'll keep going around the circle. We'll go to the Dave and then we'll pop back up to Chris.
Again?
Well, no. Hop Frog, Dave Hop Frog.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you're saying, when I think of a supergroup, I think of someone who has a pedigree of, they've done some stuff before they've got into a bigger group.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
Would Mahavishnu Orchestra later be considered a supergroup?
No, who's this?
Perhaps.
Mahavishnu Orchestra.
I don't know. I kind of say no because that was kind of more of like a one-off kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But aren't all of these? I mean, most of these supergroups, with the exception of Crosby, Stills, and Nash and the Young version, all they put out maybe 3 albums max. Some of them only one. So
Blind Faith only one.
Right.
But again,
the Wheelberries only 2. Even though their second one's called Volume 3, there's a story.
Well, and Chris, you brought up Derek and the Dominos just now. They're actually in my collage of pictures for the show.
Yeah,
well, between Eric Clapton and Duane Allman, and I can't say that I have all the names, know all the names in the band, and that's why I haven't brought them up yet. But if
that's my favorite Eric Clapton band, and that is a supergroup in my opinion, because by the time they got together, your casual fan knew all about Bobby Whitlock, Carl Radle, and the rest of them. Who was the third one?
Gordon?
Jim Gordon, right, on drums. There's a story. All right, but everybody knew because everybody owned All Things Must Pass, and it's written all over the album. Those guys were there. That's how they met, Okay. And of course, everybody knew Duane Allman already. What?
Oh, he was fantastic.
Oh, so Layla is a masterpiece.
Wasn't there members of the band Delaney and Bonnie in there as well?
Didn't
that kind of evolve out of that?
It may have. Didn't Bobby Whitlock, he and Radle came through Delaney and Bonnie, and that's why George had him over for the sessions, because George was hanging around with Delaney and Bonnie. And there's this whole story about there's about 3 people that lay claim to have actually written My Sweet Lord other than George Harrison. And of course, the keyboardist, Fifth Beatle, Get Back.
No. You're talking about
Billy Preston. Said he actually laid down the basic thing, over My Sweet Lord, and George kind of took it from there. And Delaney and Bonnie also lay claim to kind of some authorship around that song. So and then George gets into his magnificent, and somebody was talking about Phil Spector today on the stream, saying that I liked what he did early. Oh, it was Grant's Warehouse. He was on Larry's. I wanted to be on that show, but I was up all night editing. But I'll tell you, they were talking about Phil Spector. Oh, he was good in his time and everything. That's bullshit. One of them even said, I just can't listen to John Lennon because of Phil Spector. And there's some truth to that. I can't either, Grant. Sorry, but and you're not bullshit. Your opinion is no. But anyway, I was going to say, Phil Spector. When they took his mixes out of All Things Must Pass, what a rape job that was. And I know George was all behind it. He was still alive. He wanted that to happen. George was wrong. Just like Paul McCartney's wrong to charge $5,000 for his live shows. All right. I love these guys, but, George was wrong. The masterpiece is the Phil Spector sound. And it wasn't long after that he didn't have much to offer as far as I'm concerned. But right into the early 70s, from the early 60s, Phil Spector, I don't care what you think of the man. He's a murderer, bastard, all of that I agree. But you got to look at him clinically as historic producer that's recognized, and he's one of the few producers that I would hold up to the level of George Martin. All right. And George Martin to me is an ultimate producer. He's a classically trained musician. He understands basic layout of the recording facilities and recording principles, not to saturate the tape. He surrounded himself with geniuses, and he was humble and always gave the Beatles. He always said this. He says, the Beatles, the four Beatles were the greater talent. You know, when because they were asking him, trying to compare. People do that in interviews right up until he died, saying you didn't get enough credit, and he got all the credit. The only person that ever questioned him was John Lennon, and John Lennon was in a shitty little mood for about 3 or 4 years, and everybody got whipped on by John. And so John said, "Please show me some George Martin music. Anybody? We wrote the music, man." But George Martin, that hurt George Martin. That really hurt, because Martin, he's not only just a producer and not just a friend, but he like Brian Epstein. See, there was love on the Beatles team. Think about that. Other bands had masters and geniuses around them. But for the most part, these people, and they bitched about, Jeff Emmerich got a lot of kind of standoffishness from John and a little bit from George, because he was seen as Paul's buddy friend. But, it was all love. Like a family, they'd bitch. So when we're talking about these supergroups and everything, these are magical elements and timing. And these kind of groups, I don't think we're ever going to see it again. I think it would be too Hollywood if they set up a supergroup. I think it went with the gypsy lifestyle of the Jimi Hendrix, acid-driven, pot-smoking, free love, stop that war. Can't we all be friends and grow our hair? Every magical time, right?
Every protest movement.
I wish I could grow my hair, but
name something I didn't march for, Royce. Name something. I can't. I was. Hey, LBJ, get out of our way! I'm marching with my mom for the National Organization for Women.
Well, it was the women's movement. It was the.
And I was at every bra burning, baby. I was at all the bra burning.
Yeah, but I know why you were there.
Anyway,
David, at that time, I was one of the most liberal people you ever met in your life, and a lot of my liberalness came from selfish desires. I wanted sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
You had selfish desires? Hey guys,
what better way to get it than the liberal side of life?
Yes,
free love.
Hey, I want to point out that the chat is kicking our butts tonight. Okay, Angela's so quick. While we were all tripping over our own tongues, she typed Billy Preston on the screen.
Good point, Sean.
And Sean McCall, has been talking about how many great artists were in John Mayall's Bluesbreakers, including Eric Clapton joined them, obviously, and they featured Eric Clapton. But
we covered him about 3 or 4 months ago on this stream a bit when we were talking about.
We did. But we get so much help from the chat.
Yeah, that's great.
If we get stuck, just look at the screen. The answer is going to be there.
Quit fighting, Caitlin.
All right. So let's see. Chris, what do you?
Good point, Eric. Since everybody's claiming authorship, maybe they should pay whatever George had to pay, a percentage of it.
Oh man, yeah.
Because he was the only one that took the flack for it. And I'll tell you what. The first time I heard it, I heard the similarities, and here it is. Both songs were in E minor, okay, and they go to that B minor to D. I really want to see you. Well, guess what? The Beatles would use that trick in Help and everything else. That G to B minor, D to E minor, all of those kind of changes and everything like that. So I heard that, but I didn't think that was a direct ripoff. That's matter of fact, I think that case is an excellent example. That was more of a progression that they were laying claim to, and you're not supposed to be able to lay claim to a progression. Right?
Hey, whoever made the comment that Billy Preston was the fifth Beatle just got their tail kicked by Paulina Angel Plus.
You know what? Yeah. I just did some polls on that, and when I said who was the fifth Beatle, I didn't include musicians. I just included, like George Martin, Brian Epstein, and then I put a joke or something like that. Jan Winter. No, seriously, Jan Winter. No, but I like to have fun with my polls. But you know what? If you're going to talk about close to the group, being responsible for the sound, and even it could be argued sometimes practically a co-writer, George Martin is the fifth Beatle. All right, no disrespect to Brian Epstein. They would have never have made it without him.
Or Billy Preston.
or Eric Clapton. Because if you're going to include Billy Preston, Eric Clapton played on a Beatle track. So,
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He played on While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
I'd say Brian Epstein was kind of the back office fifth Beatle, and George Martin was the in-studio.
Good point. I like that. Yeah. As a matter of fact, one time Brian came in when they were recording Strawberry Fields, and Brian made a comment. They were listening to playbacks, David, and he goes, John, I think you could have done that. You could have sang that a little, flatter or sharper or whatever. He said there was some sort of improvement. Yeah. And John, being John, can you imagine this? Because John, this is why I love John and why sometimes he blew me away. He looked right over his glasses. He had the wireframe glasses, and he goes, "You handle the percentages, Brian. We'll handle the music." And from that time on, Brian never showed up again and said anything. So he was, you're right, he's outer office. He was the liaison to the world, and George was the liaison to the world audibly, Yeah.
Hey, I gotta ask David Safe and Sound. Okay, I just saw your comment about Yoko, and you know what? I have the Live at the Fillmore East, Frank Zappa. Do you have that Frank Zappa? It's a 3-album set. Well, on side C, he had invited them to come up and play with him, John and Yoko. Frank Zappa did. And after his set was done, they came up and did some songs with him. But that entire side of side 3 on that album has Yoko faintly doing her patented scream over and over again in the background. It took me a minute to catch on. I was like, oh my God.
You know what, Royce? I would love to know, what is this romance in the vinyl community with Yoko freaking Ono and the Lennon estate and Sean Lennon? And it's like, oh, and look, if you put a black light on, John's face turns to Yoko. Are you all right now? I'm sorry. I am sorry, man. It had. I am not interested in Mind Games. I don't think Mind Games is one of John Lennon's finest albums. There's some great material on it. It's a good album, but he produced it, and the original sound. I don't care with this box, and you get this box, they all fold down. It's like, oh my God, people, and it's like Yoko to this day. Right there at the end, they were still trying to mend things between them. There was no, for sure, right up to the day John died, that they were going to be there forever. I think John was making a major effort to do that. But there had been rumors that Yoko wasn't even at home. John raised Sean. And Yoko was off making business deals, buying lands, and actually re-secured John Lennon's financial estate. So for John, that's good. He loved her. That's good. and as a fellow artist that was his muse, that's good. But I don't like her stuff. The closest she ever came with anything I liked was off of Double Fantasy and All I Want, which is her at her best. All right. It didn't make me throw up, but I just wanted to rip those tracks off the album. Can I just buy one side with John's songs, please? So I am not a John Lennon fan in that, it's not the great love story for me. And she's still sticking her freaking ugly face right in there. If you have a black light, she's got to be part of the show. She ruined Peace in Toronto, the whole second side. I don't like her. I don't care for her.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Can you tell me
Do
what
you
you
think
think?
I just want to know, do you think Lennon Estate will be sending me a copy of that box set? Please, I appreciate it. And no cutting down people who are doing that, and or that they're big Yoko Ono fans. But, it just seems like such a love fest in the last month since this box set, set was coming out. And so I'm kind of a contrarian. I see both good and bad with that whole love story and Yoko and everything. But my God, she's not the freaking genius. And she wasn't half the genius of John Lennon. All right. She was a muse at best, and he was the genius. And it's his art I want to hear. Now, I don't want to see her anymore. Retire.
Okay, Michael, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Back on the subject at hand. What do you think of the supergroup Asia with half of your favorite Yes members in it?
Yeah, that now we're getting down the line. We're not talking about the early stuff. I loved Asia. Asia. Yeah. They were kind of almost they were like pop friendly Yes before Yes became pop friendly Yes on 90125. That's kind of like that. That's where I always looked at them, and I love that because I've always said this. I love to watch Sneed TV. God, he's got a great thing going over there. But he covers a whole. He does anything from doo-wop to the bands that were making all those like number 12 to number 21 hits that we all heard. And we don't remember, what are your favorite songs? I love his whole approach. And so I love good pop, just good pop. It doesn't have to be good rock and roll. And when you can do it both, together, that's to me the perfect blend. So Asia, a lot better than ELO. And I liked ELO, but I love Tarkus. I think that's a masterpiece. And I like some other things from ELO, but Asia would be a band that, let's get their
I appreciate Jeff Lynne's talents, producing and everything else, and writing.
Oh, yeah.
But I was never a big fan of ELO. I actually have a cassette box set. And
that long one?
Yes, the long one. Exactly. Long, colorful one. Yeah.
Right.
Oops. Yeah. Where did Dave go?
Lost Dave.
Oh, wow.
Dave's not here.
I just want to say that, we got joined by Michael Chavez. I'm not monitoring the chat as good as I could, but he may have been here for a little while. And then Piccolino the cat is also in here.
And folks, once again, every 5 or 6 episodes I mention this, my setup is I don't see the chat. So unless Royce is bringing it up, I don't see it. And so if anybody's made any questions or responses, know that.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Sean McCall's.
Yeah.
You can see this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
company.
Good point.
Yep.
Okay.
And they were a supergroup.
Yep.
They were a supergroup.
Well, here's what I want. Here's what I want to do right now. It's 7:19, and I want to ask anybody that wants to participate in the chat, please list, and we'll put them up on the screen, what your favorite or what you consider to be the first supergroup of all time. Just put the
First
name
or
up
best?
there. First
Yeah.
or best. Yeah, first or
Okay.
best. Yeah.
And I agree, Music Sanctuary, John Wetton,
Yeah.
crystal clear.
For sure.
Well, get your butt up here, Dave. Refresh and come on back up.
Yeah. Here
He's
we are.
backstage
Here we
now.
There he is. There he
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
He's back.
So anyway, I just want to reiterate, I put Cream in the top spot for supergroups. So
now you're mentioning
that-
your favorite. Yeah, that's your favorite supergroup. Is that what we're doing? Because we're just naming the first.
what I consider to be the first, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree that they were the first.
Again,
I'd say,
using the criteria of superstardom individually before the band came together.
And I would think, and I agree, I think Cream is, but if I would say most impressive to me is the Wilburys, and here's why. You have guys, you have guys that were mature, had their own pedigree for decades. And they let their egos go to do that for us. And to me, that just says a ton. And I just respect the hell out of that.
Yeah, I agree, David. Royce brought up when we were covering the Traveling Wilburys. What was that, 2 shows ago? And he brought up, and I went back and read about it. It made such sense that actually after the show, I read about it. George Harrison, the quiet Beatle, the guy who kind of got pushed around in the Beatles. But you know what? He came out of that, first of all, with All Things Must Pass. Pass. And he came out of that not weakened, not even finally recognized. He came out of that an iron-willed genius on the level of Paul McCartney and George and John Lennon. All right. Now he wasn't as consistent at delivering the quality that John and Paul would do, but when he hit, it was like equal to anything they wrote. All right.
Let me take a minute here to read through some of the chat's choices for Supergroup before I get way behind. Okay. We had Jerry C. Let's see.
Right back.
Jerry C. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I consider them a supergroup. Cream. Sean McCall says Cream. Gringo Pine says Wilburys. And that's kind of why I started the show. I brought up the Wilburys because that was my definition of a supergroup. Okay. Caitlin, the Monkeys. How could I have forgotten the Monkeys, Caitlin? Thank you so much.
The Monkeys are the antithesis of a supergroup. A group made of nobodies.
Right.
Now, come on. Now they were a made for television boys band. Give me a break. But
everybody, I love the Monkeys.
Everybody loved them. They were huge in Laurel Canyon. Everybody loved the Monkeys.
The Monkeys they're my official guilty pleasure. I love the Monkeys. I am a Monkeys fan. I will not apologize for loving the Monkeys. Right?
No,
plain and simple.
There's no need to. They were fun. I never missed a weekly show. Okay, we have Caitlin after she said the Wilburys, Cream, Hop Frog, Cream, Music Sanctuary, Wilburys, James Watson, first Supergroup, Superman Bonham, and Wonder Woman. Oh wait,
Batman.
That's Super Friends.
Oh, James, you cad.
Eric Schultz. I always liked ELOs. Can't get it out of my head, or whatever the title is.
Yep.
Oh, you know what, Royce? I was going to say
sound to it. Yeah.
I was going to say when you were talking about, you loved Jeff Lynne, but you weren't always, right there with the music of ELO and all of that. Last week we were talking about how I kind of prefer Badfinger slightly over ELO, but I can tell you, and then I told you, don't get me wrong, I'm not only a Jeff Lynne fan, but an ELO fan. I bought all of the ELO albums. I loved them, and I played them to death. Yeah, I just liked Badfinger mainly because there's no dice in the pinup it came with.
Piccolina says
right to my wall, David. Right up on my wall, baby. That's
Okay,
where that one went.
Check this out, Dr. Rick, Super Session, Season of the Witch, baby. I had to bring that up, and I had to bring
The
the album
Firm.
out.
The Firm. Good one, Chris.
The Firm.
Yeah, I forgot all about the
My
Firm.
favorites.
Power
So once you're
Station.
done with that, Royce, I have a.
Power Station, another one I
Chris?
forgot too.
Yeah.
I'd like to go through after, if you don't mind.
No. Go ahead. Let's see. Where are we here? Okay. Chaka probably. Dave, where is our James? Hey, look at this. Groovy Lisa's here.
Hi,
Hey,
Lisa. How you doing?
Lisa, thanks so much for joining us. Okay, we're working our
I
way
joined.
through this.
It was either Lisa or Dusty's. It was probably Dusty's stream the other night. They had a really great conversation going.
This is pretty good here. Dr. Rick says his first is Super Session and his best is Wilburys.
Man, I'd have to believe
that is a great answer.
I can buy that. I'll accept that. That's pretty much how I feel about it too.
Jerry C, Bad Company.
I and also mentioning that Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and specifically for me, Crosby, Stills, and Nash would have to be in there with those two also. And their longevity,
great
they reached Olympian levels. Those four.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And boy, could they harmonize. Those guys were great.
Oh God,
Can I give you a list of some?
Absolutely.
I had a list, just going through my CD collection of what could be considered super groups.
Yes.
A lot of them have been mentioned. Gringo Pines just mentioned one of them, the Damn Yankees. But first three albums that Richie Blackmore brought in, like Ronnie James Dio and that from Rainbow. Could be considered a super group.
Yep.
The Firm, Asia, Temple of the Dog. And then some of the newer ones, Hollywood Vampires with Alice Cooper, Johnny Depp, and all of them. Chicken Foot with Sammy Hagar, Joe Satriani. I forget the other guys.
Yeah. What do they call that band?
Chicken Foot.
Something circle or something.
Oh, the Circle. Yeah, the Circle. Yeah. Chicken Foot was the previous thing.
And then them Crooked Vultures with who is it? John Paul Jones and David Grohl.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Velvet Revolver.
Revolver. Yeah. Just some of the newer ones. I mean, just that I could think of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, those are great.
Now, here's a question to the panel and also to the Peanut Gallery. What is it about the supergroup curse? Why? Again, there's one group that kind of breaks this curse in longevity. It's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. But the others, why do you think? Because they really are great bands. Why do you guys think they were almost doomed? Or do you even agree with that assessment?
I let me think about. Okay, one of the things that I'm thinking right now is that you've got all these, famous personalities together. It's just like when I heard the Beatles talking about, maybe they replaced. I'm sure you guys have heard this, George Harrison with Eric Clapton. The truth of the matter is, how long would Eric Clapton stay? Eric Clapton would stay for, you're not even a tour.
Maybe he had a problem with commitment.
Commitment, right. So
he's more of a nomad.
Eric Clapton looked at new bands like going, "There's my future ex-wife."
Exactly. I'm going to screw them too.
But I think a lot of it has to do with big fame, maybe some big egos,
always.
You don't get the entire spotlight to yourself anymore now that you're part of a like group of musicians. So I think that could be a valid point there.
And they don't like sharing girlfriends either, so that's a
wives.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. But I think when you're at that level, boy, I have an echo going on here.
Only when you talk loud.
Echo.
Okay. I think when you're at that level, you've always got a half a dozen things in your mind about, collaborations you'd like to do. So you finally jump into one And no sooner do you get into it, you're thinking about the others again.
Right. So ego, is that the only killer? Or is there other
I think that's a big one.
factors?
It is.
I mean, I agree. I think ego is probably, that's the ice pick.
Ego and artistic differences. I would
There
say.
you go, David. Yes.
No, that's very, 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 very true. Yeah, it's just like, let's see.
Or they could go into it like as a one-off, like knowing it's going to be short-lived, like the Firm.
Sure.
When
Yeah.
Paul Rodgers and Jimmy Page got together, they knew it was only meant to be short-term. They eventually put a second album out, and if that was
Right.
more successful commercially, they may have kept it going. But
And by the way, who are the Honey Drippers? I want to know.
well, the Honey Drippers.
I have that. I have that album. See a love.
No comment.
Yeah.
I did that just
Well, one story I read recently about
Watch
Led-
it drift
Led
down your leg,
Zeppelin.
you might fall out of bed.
now that's a Led Zeppelin song.
Oh,
One story about Led Zeppelin when him and John Paul Jones were getting together. John Paul Jones told Jimmy that, you know what, I love being a session musician. I make a ton of money, but I don't have the artistic freedom I want. I have to play a part on other people's songs. So I think you get a bunch of superstars together like that, you wind up feeling a little bit of that. You don't have, when you've got 3 or 4 other people you're collaborating with, and they're all superstars, you may not have the artistic freedom you'd have back in your own solo career.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Led Zeppelin and Jimmy's original initial drive was to continue as the new Yardbirds, and he was, you just did an excellent video on a vocalist that he wanted for Led Zeppelin originally, and he also wanted him for the new Yardbirds, specifically Reed. And
Terry Super Lungs Reed.
Yeah, and so I think Jimmy's initial drive, that's why he wanted Moon and Entwistle. He wanted Led Zeppelin initially, or whatever this group was going to be called, that he had in his brain as early as 1966. Guys, 1966 is when the Led Zeppelin almost started. Not many people know that. All right, so that he wanted a supergroup, and he wisely, this is why we're still talking about Led Zeppelin like we often do half a century later. He wisely found geniuses who would whose egos weren't super blown up yet, and they could grow into the group, and he dared to bring on John Paul Jones, who really in the studio was Jimmy Page's superior in so many ways. He read music, he arranged music, he could play 42 different instruments, and he, that doesn't put Jimmy Page down. As a matter of fact, that tells you, I'll bring that guy in. Right. He originally didn't want John Paul Jones. He wanted Entwistle because Entwistle would bring Moon in. That was his original plan.
And after that, he was going to bring Dreja with him from the Yardbirds.
Yeah,
but also,
avoiding a super group, Royce gave us a super group, right?
No. But also, I wanted to add to what you said about Terry Super Lungs Reed. Prior to asking him, he asked Steve Marriott, who played with Humble Pie and another band. Right. And he wanted him, and Don Arden. Now I think Don Arden is Ozzy Osbourne's wife Sharon's father, right? Yeah. Don Arden threatened Jimmy Page and says, "We'll see how you like playing guitar with broken fingers," and that was the end of that Steve Marriott conversation.
And you wonder why I cannot stand Sharon Osbourne. Arden sucks the big doo-doo, folks. I hate that guy. Man, his sticky little fingers have been in so much rock and roll drama. And his daughter, he sends his daughter off almost like a come hither, a lure, keep Ozzy, placated. Oops, there's a love story. Yoko number 2. Ugh.
Well, I know I've said this to you last time we were talking about this. At least she's probably saved his life and his solo career.
And for
because he was
Ozzy,
killing
once
himself.
again, I'm happy for the love affair and all.
Killing himself drinking in his hotel room for 3 or 4 months before she showed up and got him back on his feet. So I have to give her credit for that. We may not even know Ozzy Osbourne as a soloist if it hadn't been for that. So
No,
you can't say that about Yoko.
Royce.
You cannot say that about
Royce.
Yoko.
No, I concede all those points, but I'll tell you. See, I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan, and I enjoyed Ozzy's. I only have ever bought one Ozzy solo album, and that's Patient 9, right? 9. It's Patient 9. Patient number 9, it's his 13th album. I never understood why he didn't call it Patient number 13. But anyway, I love that album. And I like his hits as I heard him on the radio, but I never went and bought a single album from him because he was too glitzy. He was too Hollywood sounding now. I didn't like that. I liked the more barbed wire Black Sabbath approach.
Well, right? I've got Bark at the Moon. I've got Crazy Train. Of course, I've got the Patient number 9. It's red, black marbled vinyl double album set. No More Tears. I've got others too. I'd have to go back and look, but I've got I don't know 6 or 7 Ozzy Osbourne solo albums.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I think potentially one of the reasons Ozzy called it but Patient number 9 is because not long before that, Black Sabbath put out the album 13.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Their last album,
Chris.
Ozzy.
You're right. Good point. That's probably why.
In fact, my Blizzard of Oz is a picture disc. It sits right here on my desk.
Wow.
Not by design. I've just been too lazy to hang my 4 or 5 picture discs up and find a place for them. I've got quite a bit of art in here. I've got Jimi Hendrix. I've got Bob Marley. I've got the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix again, Elvis. I got another Bob Marley I haven't put up yet. I've even got a Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston, the famous knockout. Okay, but out in my main hallway that everybody sees when they come in, it starts out Jimmy Page playing the double neck, and I'm not talking about little pictures. I'm talking about big frames. Jimmy Page in original art playing the double neck. Next to him is a pencil art, like 1 out of 100 or something, 1 out of 50, I think it was, from England. Chris Burns. Chris Burns did that one, a pencil art. And so that one is Robert Plant holding a dove. Now, if it was Ozzy Osbourne, the dove would be in his mouth. So I've got Jimmy Page playing the double neck, Robert Plant. Then you go over here to the side of the fireplace, I have Frank Zappa, and it's just a great, great picture, Frank Zappa picture, made for me by my friend George Kotkoff, who's a fabulous artist. And then also, as you move down the hall from the Page and Plant pictures, I have The Who with all their pictures on it and a blue symbol in the middle that says The Who, and Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock, which I had commissioned a friend of mine that plays in a band that I was watching. He brought all his artwork with him. He was actually a friend of my son-in-law. Brought all his artwork with him all over the tables with these beautiful drawings. And these are original artworks. He did the same one that did my Jimmy Page playing the double neck. And I asked him if he had any Hendrix. He said, yeah. And he sent me 3 or 4 photos of the ones that he had, which were all great pictures. But I said, no, I have to have Hendrix in the white leather fringe playing at Woodstock. And so I went online and found a picture I wanted and sent it to him. And he sent me back that painting.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
about we haven't discussed one of the biggest supergroups, probably because of the genre, but I personally, I consider them practically classic rock. The Highwaymen.
No, it's up right now. Michael Chavez just brought that up. And
good.
That's an absolutely excellent point.
Good, Michael. Yeah. I mean,
that is the country's probably top supergroup right there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I always used to call them the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
They were almost apocalyptic together on stage.
Oh yeah.
how do you explain the charisma of a Johnny Cash? He's very reserved.
Just
Yeah,
absolute.
he
outlaw
doesn't
country.
have
Yeah.
the greatest voice in the universe. Doesn't even write all of his songs. His biggest hit that I just fell in love with was written by his wife, Ring of Fire. But Johnny Cash is so damn rock and roll and country at the same time. Now, Willie Nelson is so rock and roll, just his lifestyle, they're all outlaws, all of them. Chris Christopherson. Oh my God, that first movie he did where he played a down and out rock star. Billy the Kid. He was just my kind of B actor. I loved him in Steven Seagal movies, and oh God, his music, great songwriters, all of them, man, they were like, when you heard the Traveling Wilburys and you listened, oh, that's Dylan. Oh, no, that's Petty there, right? With
Right.
the Highwaymen, everybody knew who was singing at what time. Distinct yet
Yes.
wonderfully inclusive voices, man. Talk about magic, on a candle right there.
Yeah.
Ooh, oh, how did that happen?
Yeah, I've got a Willie Nelson kind of a biggest hits thing, and it's a big compilation, and it's always all these guest artists on it. None of them are just him and his band. There's like guest artists on all of it. What a great album! Oh,
well, as good as the other Highwaymen are as writing songs, Willie Nelson is the master. He is on the level of a Lennon and McCartney, folks. He can write for any genre. And you've heard his songs by other artists, and probably, if you're a casual fan, it was written by Willie Nelson. Hits, he could have just done Tin Pan Alley songwriting as a career. He's that good.
Right.
He's a master.
No, he really is. Yeah, I'd be the first person to admit when I was in the music store, and it was probably like. Well, I think it was Walmart. There were probably like 100 and something albums there. And my wife says, do you see anything that you'd like to get? And I picked up that Willie Nelson album. I said, this is the only thing in here I want.
Yeah. Massive group. Massive.
Yeah. I got to see him once, Willie Nelson and friends. They used to come to the Pozo Saloon. That was an incredible little venue out in the middle of nowhere, strictly ranch country, wheat field or alfalfa fields all around you and stuff like that. And it used to be a pretty hopping little place. There was always somebody in there doing country songs. And last time Betty and I were there, we went outside and ate. They've got actually 2 bars in there, and one of those places with dollar bills pinned up all over the ceiling and stuff like that. And I actually saw, believe it or not, I saw Snoop Dogg there, of all people. He came there one time. But they would get a real collection of people to come out there. It became kind of a nice little venue here locally, very small, and it was just a fun place to hang out. Anyway, so let's see. What about the half-hour-long supergroup at Sun Records? Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. Yeah, what did they call that? Yeah.
We've mentioned that the supergroup has a curse. It's short-lived. There's one that lives for a half an hour. That'd certainly be a supergroup.
Barely made it out of the studio, right?
I love that. Half-hour long supergroup. Because they basically would cut a record in about that much time. Beatles were known to cut records that quickly too early on. I mean, it was like no nonsense. They even left, you hear little flubs. They've kind of mixed them out now, but if you get the right records, the original records, you can hear Paul McCartney absolutely vocally assassinate a couple of songs, but they left it in because, man, we're off to write Day Tripper now, I mean, my God.
Right. Sun Records. First time I was competing in a vinyl competition, I pulled out Jerry Lee Lewis, and when people saw the yellow Sun Records label, they went crazy. I won that round because of the Sun Records label. Anyway, folks, we've been going on here for a while. I just got a couple of things I want to say. I want to thank everybody Love the chat. Everybody that comes in here, you guys are so knowledgeable. You just add so much to the show participating. All my co-hosts, Chris Elliott, Michael Nolan, David, and Dave. Right now we got Tiger Dave right there on the screen. But I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want to just one quick thing here. If you'd all please hit the thumbs up button, because what that does, and a lot of people don't know this unless they watch my show, quite well by heart. But it tells the algorithm people like the show, and when people are searching for content, anything related, we have an opportunity to be put in front of them and offered to them as something to watch. And that really helps the show grow. They come and watch some other shows, and they might subscribe or come into the chat, things like that. So that thumbs up like button is really huge. It makes a big difference. If you haven't already subscribed, like about 90% of my viewers, please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be appreciated as well. So,
well, anyway, for those folks of you that are watching this later who are not subscribed to this channel, I just want to bring out something that you might not, if you've enjoyed this discourse, something that you might not know about Royce. Royce has had an incredible growth spurt on his channel, and well earned. All right.
Thank you, Michael.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason why he has not only passed his first 1,000. Boy, it took him forever to get there. I'm so glad that I don't have to hear him bitch about that on every stream. I need to get to 1,000. I need to get to 1,000. I got to get to it.
Did I ever say that? I said it once, and all my friends picked up on it, and I was like, enough already.
And within weeks, Royce had, a month or two, Royce has halved that. He has had a 50% growth spurt over that incredible accomplishment. Folks, most people, this is a statistic, who start on YouTube, who are serious content creators.
Yeah.
That's content creators who make at least one video a week. It takes them 3 years to get to their first 1,000 subscribers. All right. It took Royce not quite that, but it took him a while. He's one of those channels that got into the trench and never gave up. Don't give up on him. Sub to this channel. I love this guy. And if you're from the tribe, this is mandatory, right? You got to sub here.
No pressure.
This is where I hang out, folks. I mean, So anyway.
Yeah,
I love you,
Michael.
Royce. You've done such an incredible job, and I know what you've gone through to get there. We've talked brother. Off camera, and well done. Well done.
I've done half
Before
as much.
Finish, Royce,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just I wrote something down here. I wanted to ask Michael earlier, or anybody else here, about the Jeff Beck supergroup, which should have been earlier.
Apathy
wasn't,
and
Beck, Bogart, and Appice. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or now, see, Apathy, and I always called them Apis. But when that album came out, oh my God, I lived and breathed that album. Beck, Bogart, and Apis. I loved it. Oh God, Superstition.
Yeah. It's still available.
Yeah.
I can't believe nobody said Bachman Turner Overdrive. I'm just shocked.
Oh, there you go, David. Oh my God. Yeah.
How obvious.
Oh yeah.
I love this comment, Angela. We made Royce open the Velvet Jimmy. That 8 album.
Yes, we did.
That was 24 years old, still in the shrink wrap, and I said I wasn't going to open it until I reached 1,000 subscribers.
Oh.
And I unboxed it, and I've enjoyed it too. I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
God, it took us a year. Well, it started with me and oh God, what's his name? The drummer. He's now playing bass for his band. Pink House.
No, Grow. Oh no, Lou Mars.
Lou Mars. Sorry, Lou. It's like I've done videos where I go, that guy was in the Beatles. So a matter of fact, I just watched a couple of their new videos. They're smacking it up over there in Chico, I think. So congratulations. But, you know, him and I drove Royce to open that damn album, you know, and he held his ground. No, wait till I get to 1,000.
Novice Nick came really close to talking me into it one night.
He did one night. Yes, he did.
Yeah,
That's
I was having a hard time saying no to that. Hey,
but
Dan,
that was
how you doing?
Lou and I immediately, you know, we both almost simultaneously said, wait a minute. You got this, you know, what is this, a Star Wars toy that you can't open? You got to keep that. What? We just couldn't understand that, but we're musicians, you know. It's like, no, man, you open it up. Screw the wrap. I'm not here as a collector. I want an album, you know.
Michael Chavez is asking any thoughts on Cash as a songwriter. I think he's a good songwriter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to. I shouldn't tell the story again because anybody that comes regularly has heard me say it too many times. But we're sitting in a little place having breakfast when I was a little kid with my younger brother and my dad, and on the jukebox, Ring of Fire came on, and my dad was a huge country fan. You know, all the great country stuff. You know, Hank Williams Sr. and all this stuff, and my mother listened to something completely different. But anyway, we're sitting there, and Ring of Fire played everywhere you went. And I looked at my dad and I go, "Hey, Dad, you like Johnny Cash?" He goes, "No." I'm like, "What? I thought you loved country music." He goes, "Oh, well, yeah, I like his music, but he's a hophead." He's a hophead?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what he said. I didn't know what it really meant at the time. I had some ideas, but I must have been like 12 years old. You know, Johnny Cash is a hophead.
Well, I'll tell you, can you remember, you know, there are two songs that, actually three, but these had dramatic effects on me. Ring of Fire, the first time I heard it, very young. I fell down into, oh my God, oh, he's going to hell. I was 4 or 5 or when it came out, you know,
right,
just a young shaver. And every time I heard that song, and slightly today, I have to really, you know, age kind of puts a damper on the vivid colors we used. Remember what Sgt. Pepper felt, you know, really sounded like, you know. It hasn't sounded that good, well, since it came out. And so that whole thing, I just saw the whole story unfold in my head. The other song was Eleanor Rigby. I cried. I must have been 8 or 9 when that came out. 10. And I was down for a nap and I was listening to my crystal radio and I heard Eleanor Rigby and she died in a church. Oh, I saw the whole story unfold in my head, you know? So those are, you know, when you think of songs like that.
There's songs that have a big impact on you for sure.
Yeah. Aquarius, you know?
I know there's been plenty that had it on me, but we survived them all. Still
survived them? Why, they revived us.
Survivors on a Supergroup.
Actually, they did. Okay, folks, I think we're going to sign off now. And once again, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. David, it's really good to see you again. That's like
yes, David. Nice to have you on the panel.
Twice in 3 weeks, I think, man. Come back.
New record.
We enjoy having you here, man.
No, I just love it when you're on the panel, David. And Dave, you too, buddy.
Yeah. And Chris, Michael.
And Chris, you know what I think of Chris.
Yeah.
Chris.
Oh, yeah.
He's here all the time.
Some great ads, Chris, today. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Chris has always got some great stuff.
I love the opportunity. So get to talk about music and, you know, with live people. Doesn't get much better unless you're at a live show.
It's fun. We have a fun time here. We had fun tonight, and I want to thank you all one last time. And that's what's going on in Royce's world today. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Good night.
Night, everybody.
See you.
All right, guys. Nice talking with all of you.